Hey guys, how you doing today? There's like a billion people out on the streets today, and a kind of a windy day, so I figure another porch video. I take a ton of heat from people because I call the Conservative Party, both provincially and federally here in Canada, a death cult. Lots of people come back at me and say, "How can you call them a death cult? That's not rational. It's so insulting." Not only do I think it's rational, I think it's completely reasonable. I think it's actually super rational. I think it's completely rational to call a group of people that are denying the existence of the largest existential threat that exists in human history a death cult. I think that's completely reasonable to call a group of people who are putting the lives of not only the poor, which is sort of traditionally what the Conservative Party has always done, taken the poor and denigrated them and abandoned them, but now they're extending that to all of human life and all of human civilization. That we can wipe out humanity so that a couple of billionaires make extra dollars in their offshore accounts. This is worship. This is the worship of money. This is the worship of some kind of ideology that is ultimately a death cult because it's completely suicidal. It's completely destructive, and no more is this more indicative than in Doug Ford's Conservatives' decisions regarding the third wave of COVID-19. Without a doubt, they have decided to allow this third wave to occur. For goodness sakes, we have interviews with like the Solicitor General where they're saying, yeah, we saw the data, we saw what was going to happen, we understood what was going to happen, the professionals were saying this, that, and the other thing, we let it happen anyway, right? They chose to allow this third wave to occur because they live in a magical fairy tale land where they thought, oh, maybe it won't happen. Maybe the absolute bare minimum, almost nothing that we're doing is going to work, right? And then what does Doug Ford do when their ideology of doing nothing in the face of a large existential threat blows up? Doug Ford turns around and gaslights us, right? He blames the youth. He blames the socialists. He blames the people who are actually actively saying to him, hey, can you actually do a proper lockdown? Hey, can you actually do something? Hey, can you actually participate in maybe governing, right? Maybe build a new structure, build a new institution that's actually responsible for taking care of these sorts of things. And the conservative response is always, oh, but the economy. Oh, but the economy. As if we are actually supposed to give a crap about the hoarded wealth of a handful of billionaires over the lives of our citizenry. But of course, if you operate from the position of the death cult, which conservatives do because they are a death cult, that's a completely reasonable statement. It's completely reasonable to say a handful of billionaires should continue making gobs and gobs of money at the expense of the very lives of the people making them that money, right? That's a completely rational statement if you are a delusional death cultist, which the Conservative Party has become. And I don't think we should be, not only do I not think we should be apologizing for this, we should be thrusting this into their faces. We should be saying on a daily basis that these people are terrifying, sociopathic, delusional death cultists who are actually on a path to destroy us. And you can see it in every decision that they're actually making. Anytime they are confronted with the decision, should we actually help people? Should we actually make things better for the mass of people? Or should we continue allowing billionaires to make money at their expense? They will always choose the billionaires. Every single time. If you're one of these people that dump out of these videos around this point, please leave a like, please leave a share, please leave a subscription. We need more leftist voices. We need more leftist voices calling these conservatives what they are, which is sociopathic death cultists. Like, it's becoming overt and obvious, and it's only going to become more and more overt and more obvious as time moves forward. As this climate change crisis unfolds, as they commit austerity against us because of all of this, it is going to become more and more obvious that they are in a death cult that is actively structuring itself in order to purposefully abandon and destroy large segments of the society so that a smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller section of the populace can live in a gated community and feel safe and secure. Like, these guys watched the Hunger Games and didn't see it as like a warning or of a possible outcome for a future. These guys looked at the Hunger Games and thought, oh, that's how we'll rule in the future. That's what that will look like, right? This is the structure that they are moving towards. And the question then becomes, why are we allowing it, right? Why are we allowing it? And why does this death cult have as much support as it does, right? The Doug Ford conservatives have about 30 to 35% support in the populace. That means 1 out of every 3 people you encounter is in a death cult, right? And I'm not being hyperbolic with that. They want to destroy all human life. It's very, very clear. And whether or not you believe they want to do that because they're misinformed, or whether you believe that because they're delusional or whatever, like, the end result is the same. It's an act of barbaric evil. It's this enormously evil thing that they're doing, and you can see their decision making through this COVID-19 crisis, right? They know it was coming. They knew it was going to happen. They knew everything was going to need to be locked down. They knew these things, and they chose to do nothing, because if they were to do something, it would mean that they couldn't take that money for themselves, which is the core of it, right? If they actually did something to help somebody, it would mean that they couldn't take that money and put it in their own bank accounts. And the deep shame of this is that while the conservatives are enjoying a 30 to 35% support rate amongst the populace, the liberals, with an empty chair, nobody knows who this liberal that they have appointed as their leader is, they also have about 30 to 35. So our choices are literally a rapacious sociopath who's attempting to destroy us, or an empty chair that we know nothing about. Meanwhile, the NDP are still wallowing at around 15% support, right? This is a complete and total failure. Like, you can't beat an empty chair and a sociopath. Like, you literally can't confront. And when the NDP stand up and actually talk about what we should do, they're talking on the smallest possible scale, right? Sick days. We can't even get sick days from these death cultists, right? We can't even get 10 days so that if we do contract COVID, or if we're concerned that we may contract COVID, we can escape it for a moment, right? The death cult isn't interested in letting anybody do that. The death cult wants you to die for their money. That's what they want. It's very obvious that's what they want. And the result of this is actually going to get increasingly more terrifying, right? That just within the confines of COVID, right? Like, I'm listening to doctors say in CBC interviews that the COVID variants have already won, right? I'm listening to medical professionals say that the COVID variants, which don't care about your vaccines, which are just going to completely sidestep these vaccines, have already won, right? And why have they already won? Because instead of doing a proper lockdown and eradicating this thing, right? Instead of doing a proper lockdown like other countries have done, right? Like Cuba has done, like China has done, right? Like a ton of other countries have done in order to eradicate this thing, we actually allowed it to stay in our society and stew, right? And why did we do that? Right. We have to sacrifice human lives for a billionaire class that doesn't give a shit about us and will abandon us the second it possibly can, right? That's the structure of the death cult. That's what we keep voting for. That's what we keep voting for. Like, there does come a point where we have to turn the finger back at ourselves and say, why on earth are we supporting this? Why on earth are we supporting this? And the only thing that I can come up with, like, I used to say that people are stupid, but I think that's a dismissal. I think people are just heavily propagandized. I think people have been heavily propagandized to believe that a death cult is the appropriate way to organize your society, that we should just lift all these restrictions, let the virus go through, and God will sort it out, right? This sort of overt crypto-fascist ideology that definitely exists within the conservative mindset, because they are indeed a death cult. And but of course this completely fails, because it's not like the virus will go through, kill all the people it's going to kill and then leave, right? It's going to mutate, it's going to change, it's going to evolve, it's going to create stronger, more powerful versions of itself, because that's what viruses do. And because we have done nothing to actually eradicate this thing, because we've done nothing to actually confront it and try to get rid of it completely, we've allowed it to stew, create a bunch of variants. And so this vaccine thing that we're doing right now, it's not going to work, right? We're still going to be dealing with this a year from now, right? We're going to have another winter of this. We're going to have another whole season of this, because we absolutely refuse to do what we needed to do. And the countries that actually did do what they were supposed to do, in a year's time, they're going to be leaps and bounds ahead of us. They're going to make us look like goddamn idiots, right? Because we are. Because we are. And why? Because we keep voting for death cultists, right? And we keep pretending like the Liberal Party is not also complicit in this. We keep pretending as though the Liberal Party is a reasonable counterfoil to an overt, obvious death cult, right? And we keep pretending as though, oh, well, if we just keep passing the ball back to the Liberals and then back to the Conservatives and back to the Liberals, that's going to result in anything but complete wholesale disaster for us, right? I don't like talking about this. I super don't like talking about this. It's a super downer. Like, it's a super huge downer to continuously have to confront this overt and obvious death cult that exists within our society, right? This death cult that demands that you do all the work, they take all the productivity for themselves, they jam it in an offshore account somewhere where no one can ever have access to it, where all it does is sit there like they're dragons sitting on gold piles of money, right? And the biggest front that we have right now is the NDP, who in their resolutions that they're passing just this weekend, I'll make a video on it later, they're talking about the mildest possible reforms to a death cult system that enslaves you and steals not only your money, but your time, right? This is the only commodity that matters, right? That's the only commodity that matters is your time. There's nothing else matters more than your time, and we give it away so freely, and it's because we've been trained to. It's because we've been trained to. From a very young age, we get jammed in these school institutions, we get jammed in all this kind of stuff. Okay, so what can we do about any of this? Join third-party, non-affiliated organizations, right? I choose Socialist Action. It's down in the description below. You can go take a look. These are non-affiliated political organizations, so we get together and we vote in blocks, right? And pick organizations like Socialist Action that are explicitly anti-capitalist, because capitalism is the death cult, right? It's a major death cult that we need to confront and we need to dismantle, and we need to do it very, very quickly, because they're not interested in stopping climate change. They're not interested in stopping climate change. They're interested in dealing with climate change, right? If I was under the age of 20 right now, I would stop listening to everybody. I would stop listening to teachers. I would stop listening to all politicians. I would stop listening to anything that was put on any corporate news entity. I would stop listening to everything, and I would continuously work to organize what we definitely need in this society, which is a prolonged general strike. That's what we need without a shadow of a doubt. We need to confront this death cult head on, and we need to tell all of the political organizations that exist in our society that if you are going to deny the existence of climate change, and if you are going to knowingly perpetuate a disaster like COVID, just like the Ford administration is 100% doing, you do not belong in the civil society. You cannot be a public service worker. All right, that's the end of this video, guys. Please like, share, subscribe. If you made it to the end of this one, you have to subscribe. Those are the rules. I don't make them up. I just enforce them. You guys are doing really wonderfully out there, okay? This death cult spends billions and billions of dollars in advertising and public relations in order to gaslight you, okay? They're trying to convince you that you're less than what you are, which is a beautiful, unique, divine being walking around this world, okay? Good luck. We're gonna need it.